Hi, Hannah. Today was talk about how we can incorporate feedback into daily practice, and then how we can help students progress in how their perception of feedback can help them progress as a clinician. So I think we can incorporate that a lot of times when we do comps in the comp lab, or even if we're working in practicum as we do, and they're practicing a skill, we can always incorporate that there. So that 5-minute or 1-minute preceptor talk talked a lot about using like a sandwich approach. And so, you can talk to them about, hey, you did this really well, and then continue on talking, but we can do this, and so correct them on something they may have not done as great on, and then kind of talk about what they can do to do better. So maybe it is reading an article. I'm like, hey, you did this really good, but you need to improve on this certain skill, and this is a great article, or let's practice this some other way, so they can not only learn from their mistake and do it better next time, but also understand the research behind why it might be done better a different way. And then also we can end it kind of sandwiching the two goods together with something else is really good. Once they learn that, you can say, this part was also good in this performance or something. So kind of sandwiching good with that corrective feedback, but also giving them a way to improve and not just saying you did this poorly, but showing them how to do it correctly and giving them resources to prove that they can do it better. And then moving on to that student feedback, I think, according to the book chapter, that feedback can be really hard to take sometimes. As much as it sucks to give, students might not take that very well. So we need to encourage that two-way preceptor communication so that clinician and student both are talking and giving feedback to each other. That way they can, share knowledge of what's good and what's bad and what to improve on. And also we need to have them understand that feedback is lifelong, so all about lifelong learning. So we need peer feedback when we go up as clinicians, as well as student feedback. When it comes to their perception, I think it really depends on how it's being given. So if the preceptor is super critical and not giving positive or constructive feedback, they might just take it as they're a bad student. But like I said, if we give it like a sandwich approach, they might actually be able to do more and then learn more from that research behind it to actually improve themselves as a clinician and as they go forward in the profession. So it's really important to encourage students to learn from their mistakes. And so if a student thinks that feedback is completely negative and they disregard it, or they don't have that communication, open lines of communication with their preceptor, that might not be as effective to them. But if someone gives them feedback and they take it to heart and they can learn from that experience of what they did incorrectly or correctly, then I think that will be that positive progression as a clinician. So I think how they receive that feedback is really important, because if a student is so negative and if you give them any type of feedback, they think they're terrible at doing what they do, or they don't care and they continue kind of doing it wrong, then we're not going to be creating good clinicians. We're going to be creating people that think they're better than anyone else. But if there's a good connection between the preceptor and the student, then those open lines of communication are super valid and very important, so that we do make good clinicians and they're able to take that feedback and run with it. Some of the papers have stated that we don't have all those open lines of communication, that a lot of the feedback given is very one-sided, and so it might just be the clinician telling the student what he or she did wrong without that feedback coming back from the student. The one article stated that, out of a 12-minute video, or 12 or 22-minute discussion, the student maybe talked for 2 minutes. So there needs to be a two-sided feedback, talking to the student and the clinician, and having that open line of communication, and that communication needs to be improved to actually help, the student. So I think these are really important topics, how to give feedback, because it's so important as clinical instructors and as preceptors that we can give well-constructed feedback to students so that they can improve. Because if we don't, and we just kind of let them do what they're doing, then they might not improve, or they might just stick with whatever one person did to them. So I think it's important to encourage the students to go and get feedback and ask the preceptors, what can I do better? I don't know how we could do that, but if we can encourage that communication between both sides, then they can learn. But also, we can potentially be creating good clinicians or preceptors because they can learn maybe what they're doing wrong if they miss something. So both ways are really good. Hopefully, we can kind of encourage our students to learn from their mistakes. Everything is lifelong learning. I'm still learning as I continue in my education for being a clinical educator, and also every time I go out and do PRN work, I'm learning from what I see and what I do there. So I think we have to encourage that mindset in our students too. That's all I got.